Resistance. We all face it. Every single time we take a step towards the direction of the dream, the goal, the gift that God has given you, the impact that He wants to have in and through your life, every time you or I take a step in the direction of that goal or dream, we face resistance. And it shows up in so many ways. It shows up as procrastination. It absolutely is going to show up as fear. And resistance, remember, it only has one goal. One very insidious goal. It wants you and I to die with the dream that God's given us, the passion that He's given us, the gift that He's given us. It wants us to die with that dream still inside us. Steven Pressfield wrote a book called The War of Art. And if you are a creative person, or if God has given you a goal or a dream that you are in pursuit of, and I believe that is every single one of us, you need a copy of this book in your library, because Steven does an absolutely incredible job of outlining resistance so that you can identify it. And then he outlines one way that you can instantly defeat resistance. And how do we do that? We turn pro. Well, Steven says that turning pro, becoming a professional, is a moment in time after which everything changes. And now we're not talking about becoming a doctor or a lawyer, that type of professional. It's becoming a professional in pursuit of that goal or dream. And Steven says when he looks at his own life, there is the moment before he made the decision to become a professional and the moment after. His life is divided into being an amateur before the decision and a professional after the decision. And it is a decision that each and every one of us can make, and resistance hates it when we turn pro. So here are 3 things that you need to know about defeating resistance so that you can make the decision and instantly begin defeating resistance. The number 1 thing that you need to recognize about turning pro is that professionals show up. Once you make that decision to turn pro, you're saying, I am going to show up every time, regardless of the circumstances. There are no more excuses. I'm going to show up if I'm sick, if the weather's bad, if I've got a flat tire. It doesn't matter. Once you make the decision to turn pro, you make the decision to show up every day consistently. So Steven tells this story of a writer who was asked this question: do you write on a schedule, or do you only write when inspiration strikes? And I love that question, because I think so often when we look at creative pursuits, so often when we look at the different gifts that God's given us, dreams and goals and things that are in that sort of creative space, we often think that we need inspiration in order to be able to move forward. So it's a great question. And the writer responded as he said, you know what? I only write when inspiration strikes me. But thankfully, inspiration strikes every morning at 9 o'clock. I absolutely love that. He shows up every single day, puts himself in front of that computer, in front of that blank page, whatever that is for you, and he's ready to create, step forward into that, and he's already defeated resistance because he's put himself in the place. The motivation, the inspiration will come because he is there, ready to take on the task at hand. I also heard a story about Jerry Seinfeld when he was early in his career. He was at a coffee shop or a diner or something, and he looked out across the street and there was a construction site. And he said, you know what? That's the difference between what I'm doing and what they're doing, is they show up every single day to work no matter what. He says, what if I do that? What if I took that same mindset of becoming a professional and apply that to his writing, his comedy, becoming the comedian that he actually ended up becoming, bringing so much joy and laughter to so many of us? Look at the fruit of that. He made the decision and decided to write every single day. I'm not sure if he still does that, but I know he did for many, many years, where he chose to show up every single day at comedy, working at his craft as if it was his job. And the fruits of that labor were absolutely incredible. Steven says that the professional accepts no excuses. Resistance knows that if it can defeat you for one day, one time it can stop you from completing your craft, the next day the chances of you missing again, that percentage chance goes up exponentially. It knows if it can defeat you once, it can get you again. And resistance is going to lie to you. It's going to tell you you can miss one day, you can pick it back up, but don't believe the lies. Show up every day. And the second thing that I want to point out is that the professional acts in the face of fear. I think there is a prevalent thought, lie out there that when someone is in pursuit of their goal, once they're a professional, they actually turn pro and fear disappears. So whether that be a writer, someone in public speaking, an artist, a singer, a musician, that all of a sudden they don't have stage fright. They're not afraid of the blank page. They never experience writer's block. But the professional acts in spite of. We believe that the singer that is up there, the musician that is up there performing, or the person that is speaking, maybe even your pastor, you believe that they get up there and that they have no fear because they're a professional. I promise you that is not the case. There are so many professionals that still feel that gut fear, but do it anyway. I know that when I sit down to write content, whether it be preparing for these videos or in other spaces, that when I'm staring at the blank page, the fear is there. Like, what if there is nothing there this time for me to draw from, or for me to reference, or for me to equip you with? What if I can never come up with another idea to share again? The fear is there, but that is resistance speaking to me. So what I do is I take a moment, then I sit down, I get ready to write, I pray, and then I get to work. So a professional knows that the fear is going to be there, but they're willing to do it anyway because the dream is big enough, right? So what's your dream? What's your goal? What's that gift that you're working towards? And what are you afraid of? Are you willing to do it in spite of the fear? That's part of the decision of turning pro. That's part of the decision of saying, you know what? The fear is going to be there. I'm going to step into this because I believe God has called me to it. And the third thing that I want to point out is that the professional falls in love with the craft. The word amateur actually comes from the Latin root to love. And when God puts that gift in your heart, that dream, that plan, that goal in your heart, you fall in love with the dream, the gift, the idea of what that might look like as it becomes fruit. But in order to actually turn pro, you need to fall in love with the craft. The difference being that the craft is the day-to-day, what it's going to take to develop and build towards that goal, that dream, develop and build that gift that God's given you. You got to fall in love with the craft. Because in my experience, the result, the big dream that you're shooting towards, that's going to happen on God's time, not your time. So if you can fall in love with the craft, fall in love with the building of the person that God wants you to become, fall in love with that. Because if you're always waiting for that big goal, that big dream to come true, and that thing to happen in your life, then you're living a life of discontent. You're going to be living without joy, sort of waiting for these things to happen. Meanwhile, there can be incredible things happening, incredible growth happening on a daily basis as you fall in love with the craft. So I want to encourage you today, you can do this. Steven Pressfield made a really interesting observation in his book. He says, you want to turn pro, you already know how. Each and every one of us, you, myself, we already know how to turn pro. We're already doing it in another part of our life, most likely in our job, where we show up each and every single day, even when we're not feeling 100%. We work all day. We show up even when we don't necessarily want to be there or stay through the whole time, but we find a way to push through when the times are maybe more challenging or difficult, and we get the job done. We show up because it matters, because we know we're putting food on the table for our family, building the dream that God's given us, supporting so many other people, supporting the team that you get to be a part of, whether you're leading that team or a part of that team. You know what it means to be a professional because you're already living it out each and every single day. So Steven says, take that mindset that you're already a pro. You know how to do this. Now apply that to that dream, to that gift, to the goal that God's put in your heart so that you can become a professional in the impact that God wants to have in and through you.